Today we are very glad to have the association of His Grace Swayam Prakash Prabhu, who will be sharing the nectar from the Transcendental Prayers of Srila Prabhupada, titled Markine Bhagavata, verse number 8, aboard Jaladota. Prabhuji, over to you, Prabhuji.
Yes, no.
Prabhuji, you will share the screen, or you want me to open and share the screen, Prabhuji?
The initial part you can share to that this one, Markine Bhagavad Dharma. Then after that, the Bhagavatam few verses I'll share.
Okay, Prabhuji. I will start the sharing now. We can start the class.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Nashtapnayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnana Shilakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanitam Samsajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanyatamsha Namahom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutali Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurattishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Leelachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukha Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yatpatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarini Paramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Hare Krishna. Yeah. In this now Srila Prabhupada in this song, especially in this verse and in the quoting this, after this verse, Prabhupada quotes the series of verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, which tells about the same, this one. Yeah, there is some one block which is coming. Yeah. Yes. So in this verse, Bhagavatir Kata Sita Bhavata Dhirahaya Shune Jadi The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. And then Prabhupada quotes the series of verses. So today we'll try to see from few of the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam that how this Prabhupada, as Prabhupada is telling, I'll share it Prabhu next, like further things.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So how Prabhupada is telling that, as Prabhupada is telling that this Bhagavatam is the incarnation of Krishna, Tava avatar, that is Krishna, it is your incarnation, and that is mentioned in the different, like a few of the verses of the Bhagavatam itself. And then we'll see that the verses which comes in the 5-6 verses which Prabhupada quotes, as well as how in the second line it is telling that Dhirahaya Shune Yadi Bar Bar, like that if they hear it through their ears again and again repeatedly, if they give submissive oral reception, they become dhira, or like sober person. So these two main themes we'll try to see from the Bhagavatam itself today. In the Bhagavatam, when the different incarnations of Krishna comes, at that time, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 3rd chapter, 43rd verse. I just share. Yeah. This tells about how when Krishna went to the spiritual world, he left behind the Purana or the Srimad Bhagavatam in this world. It tells Krishna Swadhamopagate Dharma Jnanadibhi Saha Kalo Nashtadrishamesha Puranarko Dhunoditham. Krishna, when he left to his abode back after completing his pastimes, like now, Krishna, when he goes, or when he goes anywhere, he not only goes alone, he takes his complete entourage. Just like a king, wherever he goes, he doesn't go alone. He goes with his whole entourage. The same way, Krishna had come with all the devatas and all the other associates. And when his service or his part was over, then he took all of them back to the spiritual world. And that's what is mentioned in this verse also, that like now, when Krishna left this world, Krishna Swadhama Upagate, when Krishna left back to his own abode, Dharma Jnana Adibhi Saha, along with the Dharma, the religion, the knowledge, then Kalo Nashta Drisham Esham, for the sake of this Kali Yuga, Nashta Drisham, for the people who have lost their sight, as it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam itself, that how in the Kali Yuga people are Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Upadritaha. That is, they are less intelligent and everything goes down in this age of Kali Yuga. At such time, like now, Purana Arka means the sun. So this Bhagavatam has arisen, or it has, just like the sun rises in the morning, just like the same way when Krishna left this world, the Bhagavatam has arose in the form of the which can give the sunlight and which can show the path, or what is the right thing for the people of this age of Kali Yuga. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion and knowledge. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So, Prabhupada also in this purport very nicely writes, Prabhupada quotes that how in the Kali Yuga people doesn't have the right understanding of who they are. They understand like now this body to be the self, and they're leading the life of the animals, and because of which they are not rightly in the proper understanding of what is the goal of life. And that's why Prabhupada, in the ending part here, he writes, and Prabhupada mentions about how this whole Bhagavatam, when Krishna left this world, the Kali Yuga started. At that time, his uh, uh, incarnation as Vyasadeva, he composed the whole the Vedic literature in the written format, understanding the Kali Yuga people, how they'll not be able, they'll not be Shrutidhara. Previously, it was just heard and it was repeated to the next generation, and understanding that will not be possible. So he compiled the whole Vedic literature, segregated them. At that time, when he was compiling all those things, still he was not satisfied completely. Then, under the direction of Narad Muni, he composes the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada writes here, thus both the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are like torch bearers for the blind people of this age. In other words, if men in this age of Kali want to see the real light of life, they must take to these two books only, and their aim of life will be fulfilled. And then Prabhupada writes that how Bhagavad Gita is a preliminary study of Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life, Lord Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad Bhagavatam as direct representation of Lord Krishna. One who can see Srimad Bhagavatam can see the Lord Krishna in person, because they are identical. That's why in the Bhagavatam, the different cantos are compared to the different parts of the bodies of the Supreme Lord. Just like the first two cantos are compared to the lotus feet, and that way the 10th canto is the face of the Supreme Lord. So, and even in many places in the Orissa as well as in Burma also, one of the temple is there where the deity is nothing but the Bhagavatam. They worship the Bhagavatam because the Bhagavatam is non-different from the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada having the same this one, that Prabhupada, after writing the commentary for the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam, while going he carried this 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the next part, like next line, as Prabhupada is telling that Dhira hoya shune yadi kane bar, that is, a person will become sober if he hears the Srimad Bhagavatam continuously. Because in the Kali Yuga, as the Bhagavatam also tells that the people are mainly in the mode of Rajo and Tamo, and they should be come to the mode of goodness. And in the many verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, it tells that how this, like, Srimad Bhagavatam will help a person to come out of the lower modes. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the 2nd canto, 8th chapter, 5th verse. It tells, Pravrishta Karnarandrena Swanam Bhavam Saroruham Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilasyeta Asharat. That, like, now this Karnarandra, having entered through this Karnarandra, the words of Srimad Bhagavatam are the sound incarnation of the Lord. In the translation, Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like a autumn rains upon pools of muddy water. Just like when in the autumn season, when the rain comes, all the muddy water it gets settled and the water becomes pure. The same way, when one hears this the sound vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam, then the heart becomes purified. Once Srila Prabhupada was in the Juhu temple, Prabhupada started giving Srimad Bhagavatam class, and he saw there are many local Indian people. So Prabhupada started speaking in Hindi. Immediately, many of the Western devotees who were there, they thought that, anyways, now we'll not understand Hindi, so better we'll get up and we can go and do the services. So one by one, they started getting up and started going inside. When Prabhupada observed, Prabhupada asked, "Where are you going?" They said, "Prabhupada, we are not able to understand Hindi, so we'll go and do our services." Prabhupada said immediately that, "No, sit down, because this is transcendental sound vibration and it doesn't depend on any language. So that way, whether you understand it or not, what the sound vibration has to do, it will do. And the uh, desired result of the cleaning of the heart will happen even if you don't understand the language. Because what works is the sound incarnation, which is not different from the Krishna. And in this purport also, Prabhupada very nicely writes, I'll just show you. Yeah. Not only were all the pure devotees like Narada self-realized souls, but they were engaged in preaching work automatically by spiritual impetus, and thus they delivered many poor souls engaged in the material modes. They became so powerful because they sincerely followed the Srimad Bhagavatam principles by regular hearing and worshipping. By such actions, the accumulated material lusts, etc., become cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. So here, like this was when I read this verse, this line, it was really very inspiring. That when we hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, then what happens is all the unwanted things which are there in the heart, because uh, uh, because of the contaminations in the heart, we are not able to see the things as they are. That's why Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says that the heart should be cleansed of the dust which is accumulated. And what is that dust? That is the six anarthas, especially Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. They are sitting in the heart, and that dust is not allowing to see who actually we are, who is the Supreme Lord, and what is our relationship, and how to act in that relationship. Because of that covering, we are trying to think ourselves as this body and trying to enjoy. But when we hear the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, by regularly hearing and worshipping, what happens? All this dust is cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. Because Lord is seated in the heart as Paramatma. And when he sees that one is really sincere, then the Lord, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita also 10:10, Jnana Deepena Bhasvata, that like now he, from the within, he lights the lamp of the knowledge. And when the light is there, the darkness goes away. The same way, when the light of knowledge is there, the ignorance goes away. And that's how our part is to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the rest part is done by the Lord. Devotional service to the Lord with specific attention to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and always is the best recommended method for liberation from the clutches of illusion. The same thing is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 7th chapter, also in the few of the verses which tells, like now in the 3 verses, we will see how similar thing is mentioned. Yaya sammohita jiva atmanam triguణాత్మికం paropi marte anartham tat kritam chabipadyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, thinks himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So, as I said, because of the covering, the living entity tries to act in a way which is not natural for him. And in this verse, Prabhupada at few places writes, just see if I can. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. Yeah. Here it is. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material condition is not natural for him. Because right now, what the living entity is thinking is, I am this body, and giving enjoyment to this body is all in all, which is not the right thing. And Prabhupada, in the beginning of this purport, writes, the root cause of suffering by the materialistic living being is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. So that means the Bhagavatam not only is mentioning what is a problem, and it is giving the solution to it also. And Prabhupada very explicitly brings out those points from those respective verses. Because Prabhupada had the complete conviction that this Srimad Bhagavatam, being non-different from the Supreme Lord, if the people hear it, the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, then their hearts are going to cleanse. And what Srila Prabhupada did is also nothing but the same thing. Because Krishna and Krishna's message are non-different. So Prabhupada, what he did in the West is nothing but he chanted the holy name, as well as he spoke from the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And people hearing it became so much purified, that to the extent that now, if you see, those who heard from Prabhupada, they're all inspiring and guiding so many devotees now, and guiding the whole society of ISKCON. So the same thing in the same purport, Prabhupada writes, the external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten souls under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of illusory energy are also necessary for the reforming of the conditioned souls. Prabhupada writes that how this Maya Devi, which is covering the living entity, it is her thankless task, because she always just, like, although she is a devotee of the Lord, but what she needs to do is she needs to cover all the living entities from their real this one Avaranatmika Shakti. There are 2 energies. One is Avaranatmika Shakti and another is Prakshepatmika. In one, Avaranatmika, she covers the living entity, and Prakshepatmika, she slaps the living entity, so that when they come to the right senses, if they understand their real this one, what I am supposed to do, then the same Maya Devi, who is the expansion of the Yoga Maya, helps the living entity to go much closer to the Supreme Lord. Till that time, she tries to beat him up through her Avaranatmika and Prakshepatmika Shakti. And one may say, why that is needed? Just like in a jail, jail is not meant for just punishing. jail is meant for reformation. So the same way, Maya Devi, being the in charge of the jail of this material world, which is also called as the Durga. Durga means a fort, which doesn't have the gates, but she tries to put the living entity in such situations so that they may start thinking that why am I suffering, or how to come out of this suffering. And when they get that question and they start trying to find out, then when one has that little bit of sincerity, then the Supreme Lord, being present in the heart as a Paramatma, he sends his representatives in the form of the devotees who give about the knowledge of the bhakti and the process of attaining the Supreme Lord. So, and in the next para, Prabhupada writes, this surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering waves of illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The process is surrendering, and how it is done? It is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. So many times you may wonder, oh, we have to surrender, we have to surrender. What actually is surrender? So in simple terms, surrendering means following the instructions given by the Supreme Lord and the pure devotees. That's why here Prabhupada is writing, the surrendering process gets completed by in the association. Why? Association of the pure devotees. It is in the another place in the fourth canto it comes that when the Kananalaha, that when the pure devotees speak, the lotus feet, the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord emanates through the words which are emanating from their mouth. It comes out and then it is sprinkled on all of us. So if you want the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, which purifies everyone, then the simple way of getting it is through hearing from the pure devotees. And when they speak, and those words are the one which is going to make the heart clean. And that's what, if you see, during Srila Prabhupada time, there are so many devotees, they were eager to take Prabhupada's association. His Grace Sankarshan Das Adhikari Prabhu is one of the initiating spiritual masters now, traveling around the world and preaching. He was telling that he was asked by his temple president that you go to the another temple because there was no leaders. They said that you need to go there and you need to take care of the temple as a temple president. So he was sent. He went to that temple. By the time he reached, already there was one more devotee who was sent from another place and he was made as the temple president. So he was told, okay, now there is no need of temple president, you become the pujari. So he agreed and then he became the pujari. And at that time, there was not many, like now, whichever lecture we want in the YouTube, so many lectures are there. But that time, all they had was the lectures of Srila Prabhupada. And that too, that time there was no internet. And he said, all we had was few cassettes. And he said, I had only 2 cassettes of Prabhupada lecture. And because of the continuous services, he would hear the same lecture again and again and again and again, continuously. And he said, now I know that the whole 2 lectures were verbatim. But then just by hearing those, although it is just 2 lectures, he said it was so inspiring. Every time I would hear, I would get a newer and newer, deeper understanding. And I was becoming more enthusiastic in my service. So he was telling that it doesn't matter that we need to keep hearing different lecture. It is not the information, it is a transformation. And when you say the association of the pure devotees, what is the meaning of association? Real meaning of association means three things should happen. Association means there should be spiritual discussion, the knowledge transmission, and then that leads to the third thing, that is the heart transformation. The spiritual discussion should be there. In that, the knowledge transmission is there. From the pure devotee speaks and the others hear. And in that, what happens, the third thing is the transformation of the heart. These three things should happen. Only then it is considered as the taking association. Otherwise, Prabhupada used to tell that this mosquito is sitting on my body, but it is simply causing me trouble. So the same way, one may be physically close, but then he may not be taking any association. So that's what it means, that taking real association means hearing from the pure devotees. So in the next verse also it tells about the same thing, about how the people are like now being troubled, and for that sake the Vyasadev, he composed this Vedic literature or compiled. Anarthopashamam sakshat bhakti yogam madhokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is relation to the supreme truth. And the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam starts with the same, that Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and Satyam Param Dhimai, like now that Janmadhyasya to Anvayaditaratas, that like now it tells that how the Supreme Lord, he is the ultimate object or the goal of the life, and he should be worshipped, and that is the purpose of this, the Janma. And here also, as the people being beaten up by the three modes of material nature, as well as there are three piercing the trident of Mother Durga in the form of Adhyatmika, Adidevika, and Adibhautika Klesha. At such time, people don't know how to get rid of this. But when they take shelter of this, the Bhagavatam, the process of devotional service, then they will be purified. Prabhupada writes in this purport, revival. Yeah. He writes, revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Although we are saying that, yes, the hearing and chanting is a process of like now reviving our relationship with the Lord, but it is not just a mechanical hearing and chanting, just that like now Prabhupada used to tell that even the parrot can be made to chant like now Krishna Krishna, but when the real challenge comes or the life and death situation comes, it will not chant Krishna Krishna, it will chant Ka Ka. The same way that one may go on hearing and chanting, but it is not just that mechanical process, but it is how we through the process of hearing and chanting, how we are taking shelter of the Lord. That is the main thing. As Prabhupada writes, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. So to get that mercy, then we need to be in the right attitude. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for the development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, the knowledge is dependent on the devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. That, yes, getting the love of Godhead cannot happen by the mechanical process. It is by the mercy of the Lord. But even if one is doing mechanically, Prabhupada writing that at least for that much time, he'll be free of that the miseries of material existence. It is that coming to the negative axis is being beaten up. Coming to the neutral axis, zero axis, is like becoming free from the miseries of the material existence. But that is not all in all. But going in the positive direction, that is the developing the love of Godhead. That needs the mercy of the Lord, and for that, one's sincerity is what matters. And again, in the next verse, it tells about what happens by giving oral reception to these words of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyam vai shroyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhaktirutpadyate pumsaha shokamoha bhayapaha. It says, Yasyam vai shroyamanayam. By simply giving the oral reception to this Vedic literature, which is compiled by the Vyasadeva, which is Yasyam, which is mentioned in the previous verse, what happens? Krishna, who is the Paramapurusha, who bhaktir utpadyate, in such people, pumsaha, bhakti arises in their heart. Prabhupada utpadyate, Prabhupada translates as sprouts up. It's just like the popcorn, if you put the maize, the jowar, immediately it what do you call that, sprouts up, it opens up and becomes a popcorn. It pops up. The same way, bhakti in such people's heart, it sprouts immediately. And what happens? Shoka moha bhaya apaha. Apaha means it is extinguished. What? Shoka, moha, and bhaya. These are the three things. Simply by once giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. And Prabhupada in this purport very nicely writes that how, although there are various senses, out of all the senses, ear is the most effective, because even when a person is sleeping, at that time, ears are very active. Prabhupada used to tell that if one is sleeping, if a thief comes, he'll not come to know that the thief has come. But if somebody says, Mr. John, there is a thief, immediately he will be able to hear it and he will become attentive and he'll get up. The same way, the ears are the main. So that's why the importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life. That is, namely, getting free from the material pangs. Because everybody in this material world, no matter how rich one may be, he is being pierced by the trident of Mother Durga in the form of the Adhyatmika Klesha, suffering from one's own body and the mind, Adi Bhautika Klesha, suffering from the external sources, and Adi Daivika Klesha, suffering from the external, the natural causes. So that way, that is being inflicted upon them. And Prabhupada writes, it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Bhagavatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as soon as this is affected, the symptoms of material disease disappear. So just to get this material, Prabhupada used to tell that one should not try to increase the material fever. Prabhupada used to tell that once there was a lady who had a maid servant, and like now she came to know that the maid servant has 101-degree fever, and she said, how can she be more than me? My temperature is only 98 and her temperature is 101. I should have 102 because mine should be more than my maid servant. Prabhupada was telling that this is the foolishness. She has got disease. One should get cured of the disease, not that like no, she has 101 degree, I should have 102 degrees. If you see the whole material world, that's what, oh, he has this, she has this, I want to have more than that. So in that rat race, people are working hard day and night, and that's why Prabhupada used to tell they're in the rat race of trying to get something which may not give satisfaction to their heart. After working the whole life, at the end, they're left with nothing. But again, they're like, no, pay back the same what they have earned to the doctor. But missing out the goal of life. But when one hears the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, then it acts like a torchlight showing that, oh, how I'm going in the wrong direction. What should be my goal in life? That shows. And Prabhupada writes in this, loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and subject matter heard about him. The Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. So then Prabhupada goes on to tell that how the people, so many people may be speaking about the peace, and the Prabhupada tells about the politicians also. But hearing from them will not give any benefit to the soul. And at another place, Prabhupada calls them as, compares them to the camel, like no Ustra Karai. It comes that the camel and asses, because the camel, although it goes and sees the thorny bushes, it eats the thorny bush and it's bleeding, and it thinks that it is relishing its own blood. The same way people may try to tell they want to have the peace, but they don't know how the peace can be brought into the society, because of which they are taking the people in the wrong direction. And then Prabhupada concludes this verse or this section by mentioning that the conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are the practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of Srimad Bhagavatam. That means if you are actually hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, then these three things should happen. Shoka, Moha, Bhaya. The Moha, there is illusion for that which is not there. We want to have it. I want it. I want it. I want it. And that is the Moha. And Bhaya, when one gets it, then fear of losing it. Oh, what will happen? How should I protect it? And when it is lost, the Shoka. Oh, why did I have it? Or why didn't I protect it properly? So these things keeps happening in the material life. But when one hears the Srimad Bhagavatam properly, then these three things will go away. If it is going away, then that means that one is hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam very attentively. And the same thing, like now, is mentioned in those 5 verses of the second canto, which Prabhupada quotes in the next, that how when one hears this, the word of Srimad Bhagavatam, 17 onwards, like now how the whole heart is purified, and one comes to the level of prema. We'll in another 10 minutes, we'll just 2 minutes, we'll just read this few of the shlokas which tells about this. Shrunutam swakatah Krishna punyashravana kirtanaha pradyantasto hyabhadrani vidunoti saratsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And then how to develop this? The taste for hearing, who has developed the urge to hear this message, Prabhupada is telling. And in the previous verse, it tells about that, how to develop that, like now, eagerness to hear by serving the great souls. Syan mahat sevaya vipra punya tirtha nishevanat sushrusho shraddhadanasya vasudeva kataruchi. This Vasudeva Kataruchi, taste for hearing, is developed when Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha, when one serves the great soul. When one great souls, then he gets the desire for affinity to hear about the spiritual subject matter, or hearing about the Krishna's, this one. So, and this also, like now, Prabhupada writes that message of personality of Godhead, Krishna, are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing and glorification of the God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. And then, like now, Prabhupada quotes that Nam Namakari Bahuda, that verse, that how Krishna is non-different from his name, and he has manifested himself in his name, but I don't have any attraction towards the chanting of the holy name. So, and Prabhupada writes that, like as discussed, developing of the taste for hearing and chanting of the holy sound is done through the medium of service to the pure devotees of the Lord. When it is said serving Bhagavata Sevaya, in the next one also comes that Bhagavata Seva, I mean, there are two kinds of the Bhagavatas. One is Vyakti Bhagavat and Grantha Bhagavat. One should serve the both. When one serves the both, then that helps one. Prabhupada writes here, the Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. Like that means, ye yathamam prapadyante, reciprocally respondent. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back home to Godhead. Only very few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. So here is telling that Prabhupada, few of this first canto purports, and few of them are really the golden words. That Prabhupada is telling that we don't have that desire only. But if one has little bit of the desire, Krishna is so eager that he makes all the necessary arrangements. And Prabhupada tells in the further also that how people may become, even though one may be very stalwart in devotional line, but one may fall because of the mistakes and the offenses and the aparadhas which one may commit, or because of the attraction towards the Kanchana and Kamini. And Prabhupada writes, ends this purport, if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind, because there is so much of unwanted things are there. Hridyantasto hi abhadrani, in the hridi antaha, in the core of the heart, abhadrani, which unwanted things are there, that is what vidhunoti, it is like no cleaned by the Lord. Like no, it is not just dhunoti. Dhunoti means cleaning. Vidhunoti means in a special cleaning. Like now, sometimes we may do just the normal cleaning, but we do maha cleaning. That means much going into the deeper. This one. And in the next one it says, Nashta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. When one hears this, like now Srimad Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, because Bhagavatam means both of them, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the person of God who is praised with the transcendental song is established as an irrevocable fact. And Prabhupada writes, here is a remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles on the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of Bhagavatas. That is both kind of the Bhagavatas, book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavata. Because Prabhupada writes, end of this purport, the Bhagavata book and person are identical. And Prabhupada writes that sometimes one may wonder that how this will happen. Prabhupada writes, human reason fails to understand how by serving the devotee Bhagavata or book Bhagavata one gets gradual promotion to the path of devotion. But actually, these facts are explained by Narada Deva. In the Narada, as a Narada boy, he was a maid servant son. But when he got the opportunity to serve the great souls, Bhaktivedantas, and he got the Mahaprasadam of theirs, then his life got transformed. How it happens, human reason fails to understand. And actually, like I had gone to the doctor once, and I was asking a few questions. So then he said, some things in the nature we may not understand how it works, but it works. He said that he was learning this Ayurveda from his guru. One day, one villager came and he told that, my cow has got infected with its udder is infected with some of the insects. Please do the remedy. And he left. And this the Vaidya who was there, he plucked a plant and he upside down he planted it. Then this younger who was apprentice, who was learning from his doctor, he said that what happened? The next day the villager came and said, what the medicine you did, it worked. All the insects have fallen down. Then he got confused. He said that he didn't bring the cow to you and you didn't give any medicine to him. How did it happen? Then this person said, actually, that's how the whole nature arrangement. I just did the remedy of plucking this plant, which is a medicine, and I planted it upside down. And then the moment it is done, this works there in the cows that are all the insects, they fall down. So the same way, human reasons may fail to understand how just by serving the great devotees of the book Bhagavata, a heart becomes purified. But that's how the system is made. And when we serve, one comes to what happens by such serving, then bhakti bhavati naishtiki. The bhakti becomes naishtiki bhakti, or nishta, comes to the stage of nishta. Ado shraddha tata sadhu sangha tata anartha nivritti. All the anarthas are gone. In the previous abhadrani, all the abhadras are gone. Then he comes to the stage of the nishta. And when he comes to the stage of nishta, what happens? Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobhadayasche cheterata anavidyam sthitam sattve prasidati. At that time, the raja and tamo bhava, what is there, the kama, lobha, all those things, other things, they goes away from the cheta, from the mind. He'll not be affected by any of these things in his mind. And he is sthitam, he is situated in the sattva, or in the mode of goodness. That means he comes to the stage of ruchi and asakti, where he is eager that I want to have more and more, I want to hear more, I want to serve more, I want to be in the association of the Supreme Lord. And when that happens, what happens in the next? Evam prasanna manaso. Thus, because of having all those anarthas have gone, he comes to the stage of nishta, and then he has developed asakti. In that evam prasanna manaso, Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha, like no Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana Mukta Sangasya Jayate. At that time, he becomes completely mukta. He becomes liberated from all the other unwanted things, and he understands the Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. That is, Prabhupada writes, it has thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. That means now he has come to the stage of the bhava. That is, he is having more and more attraction toward the Supreme Lord. And then what happens at that time? Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chase karmani drishta eva atmanishwara. He will be able to see the himself, who he is, who is the Supreme Lord, and what is the relationship. And the vidyate hridaya granthi, the knot in the heart, that is vidyate, that is pierced or that is cut. And all the sarva samshaya kshiyante, that all the misunderstandings which are there in the heart, that is also gone. And he gives up all the karmani, that is the fruitive activities, because he is able to see like himself clearly. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees oneself as one's master. I'll just end with this. Prabhupada, he says, what is this knot? Prabhupada writes here. This enlightenment perfectly enables the devotee to distinguish spirit from matter, because the knot of spirit and matter is untied by the Lord. Because of this knot, the knot of the false ego is the binding force between the soul and the gross body, because of which the soul misidentifies himself as the gross body and doesn't want to leave this gross body, and at the same time things gratifying this gross body is all in all. But this enlightenment perfectly enables the devotee to distinguish spirit from matter. The gross body is matter, whereas the soul is spirit. This knot is called ahankara, and it falsely obliges a living entity to become identified with matter. As soon as this knot is loosened, therefore all the clouds of doubt are cleared at once. One sees his master and fully engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, making a full termination of chain of fruitive actions. And Prabhupada writes, and as soon as he changes himself in his loving service of the Lord, he at once becomes free from the chain of karma. His action no longer create any reactions. Then he is situated in the mode of pure goodness, and he is able to see who actually he is. And that's what Prabhupada is mentioning in the second line, that Dhira ho yeshuni. Dhira means a person becomes sober. Like now, when he hears this Kane bar bar, when again and again he gives oral reception to this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is non-different from the Supreme Lord, then he becomes the Dhira. And that's what we see. So many of the Prabhupada disciples, like now, who were like now all searching for happiness, not knowing where to search, but when they heard from Srila Prabhupada, they became really enlightened, and then their life got transformed. Just to tell one or two incidents of Srila Prabhupada's life. Once, His Grace Burjan Prabhu says, Giriraj Swami Maharaj, that in his bathroom, behind the door, he had put in a big letters, I am God. And somehow he met devotees and they had taken him to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was giving a class. Prabhupada told, looking into the eyes of Giriraj Maharaj, that people want to become God. If somebody wants to become God, he is a dog, because Prabhupada clearly explained that how we can never become God, because we are part and parcel of the God, and eternal relationship with the Lord is as a servant. And Giriraj Maharaj says that it was as if Prabhupada is through my eyes, he's looking into my bathroom door and he's reading what I have written. And he said, that was the end of it. I never wanted to become the God. So that way, the words of the pure devotees which enters through the ear has a complete transformation. And then he, like now we know how Giriraj Maharaj helped so much Srila Prabhupada in establishing the Jew temple. The same way, there was one devotee whom everybody were calling him as crazy Peter. He would be doing nothing, and they all came and complained Prabhupada that Prabhupada, he's doing nothing. He's just simply lying and like no. Prabhupada asked, is he chanting? Is he coming to the Bhagavatam class? Is he disturbing anyone? No, Prabhupada is not disturbing, but he's not doing anything. Just tolerate. In just a matter of time, the same Prabhupada initiated him as Kushakrita Prabhu, and he became one of the great translator of Sanskrit. Prabhupada's many of the works, like no, translated many of the Sanskrit texts into the English. So that way there is so many examples we can see, we can quote also when one hears this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam. The same way, when we also hear, the same effect will have in our hearts also. So I pray that speaking is easy. All of you bless me that I'll also attentively hear this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, because of which so many unwanted things are there in the heart. May that go away. So thank you very much, Sankarshan Priya Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity. If any devotee would like to have any, share some corrections or any reflections or comments.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for wonderfully sharing the real purpose of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and what would be the effect of attentive hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. And you quoting the various purport of Srila Prabhupada is giving some hope to us, at least to me. So thank you, Prabhuji. I'd like to unmute the lines of the devotees and request them to share any questions or comments that you may have. Hare Krishna devotees, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, we can unmute. So,
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Svayam Prakash Prabhu, thank you so much. Dandit Pranam. It's a very wonderful class. Didn't realize that it is more than an hour now. And I was wondering why it ended. It was so wonderful it was. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Prabhuji has the taste, so he's able to
Yeah.
hear that attentively. And
yeah, he has, the Sanatana Prabhu has taste, so that's why he.
No, I think he was talking about you, Prabhu.
I was talking about both of you.
Thanks, Swayam Prakash Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very nicely, you were explaining about one point struck to me. I was trying to see this Prabhupada told about this analogy of competing to increase the temperature. Yeah, it's very nice. I was able to really appreciate that point about how we are trying to increase the wrong parameters in material life. So thank you very much for that wonderful reminder. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Venugopal Prabhu, for bringing that. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavata Pranam. I am really moved by heart by about the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam, so that the vibration itself will transform us. Really, I am very much moved by that, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavata Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Swayam Prakash Prabhu. I have one question, Prabhuji. I think, I couldn't remember the exact verse, but in two different verses. In one verse, the first verse, when you are reading the purport, I think you are mentioning that hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam itself will actually begin the process of transformation of heart. Another place, mechanical hearing may not have the desired effect. So how to understand? It
Yes,
appears to be a
Prabhu.
paradox, but
No,
how to understand
actually,
this?
I read the same thing in the same purport, like where I said the mechanical hearing will not have the effect. In the same down next line, Prabhupada writes, mechanical process will not give rise to the love of Godhead. That's what I said. And Prabhupada writes, but even if a mechanical hearing and chanting can remove the miseries of material existence for time being. That's what I gave the example, that having the material miseries is being in the negative axis, where person is being having all he's punished from all sides, he is pierced from all sides. That is being in the negative axis, and coming to the zero axis or the neutral axis is like getting free from these miseries by even mechanically, if one chants and hears, and he comes to that. But that is not the positive axis. Positive axis is developing love for the Supreme Lord. That will not happen by mechanical process. Mechanical process may just give relief from those miseries, but that is not going in the positive. Just like if a person is deceased, getting rid of the disease is coming to the neutral axis, but getting the developing the immunity and good health, that is a positive axis. That is like developing the love for the Supreme Lord. That will not happen by just a mechanical chanting and hearing. That's what the whole Prabhupada explains in that purport only.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. I think we may have to continue this class again next week as well through your through you, Prabhuji.
I had one question. I don't know if we have the time based on what I just heard. Is it okay to ask?
Yes.
Prabhu, mechanical chanting you were talking about, and the x-axis and all that. Now, does anartha nivritti happen with mechanical chanting or no?
It may happen, but it may depends on the seriousness of the sadhaka. It may take how much time it takes. So, but surely, like the Supreme Lord's holy name being transcendental, it will have some effect. But it may not happen. It is like Krishna tells again in the Bhagavad Gita also, ye ethama prapadyante. So that way, if I am chanting, yes, I may get some bhaktyonmukha sukriti. It will not give, when we chant and hear, it will not give just ajnata sukriti, it will give bhaktyonmukha sukriti. But it may just remain just a sukriti, and Krishna is okay, you are calling me, okay, I'll give some benefit. But it may not, he may not, as we saw in that verse also, Pravrishta Karna Randrena, that the Lord comes and he put the effort to cleanse our heart. He may not do that part because we are not eager for it. But the moment we become eager, then he will become more eager to do that. Because he never ever enforces anything on the living entity. So,
yeah, Prabhu. Thank you for that.
Yes,
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Shivalaji Prabhu. Yes,
Prabhuji, thank you for explaining. But I heard, Prabhu, that for one to understand Bhagavatam, one should, to understand properly, one should know, read at least the what are they called, Prabhu? Shad.
Shit Sandarbhas?
Nyayas, all those.
No need, Prabhu. Prabhupada never, if that were to be the case, then Prabhupada would have translated those first. Prabhupada said that whatever I want to give, I have given in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that way, if you read really Prabhupada, some of the first canto purports are so touching to the heart. But if you keep reading it, it will give so solace. When you're really baffled, then when you read just the first canto, some of the purports, they're really very, even the 1, 5, 10 and 11, where Prabhupada tells about the the words which glorify the Supreme Lord are compared to the swans and where there is no glorification of the Supreme Lord's words. That is the crow's pilgrimage that comes now. Those two verses. So in that also, it's so amazing purport. So that way, Prabhupada, there is no need of knowing any of these other Nyaya or any of these things, bro. Just the Bhagavatam in itself, because it is not different from Krishna, that itself is sufficient. If that were the case, Prabhupada would have spoken about those things when he went to the West. Prabhupada didn't speak about any of those things. Prabhupada just spoke from basic, like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Yes, if one has studied Bhagavatam and all, and to go deeper understanding, it may help, but that is not a prerequisite.
Okay, Prabhu. Because if conclusively, one should understand. Maybe before studying Bhagavatam, one should conclusively know that devotion service is the topmost. Is that that conviction should be there now, Prabhu?
No need, Prabhu. The Bhagavatam, reading of Bhagavatam will give that conviction.
Okay. Because when when a lot of reading happens, not me, but somebody expresses these points, I feel at least if they are talking about other things, and when they are making this statement that Nyayas, all those 6 Shad, they are not Sandarbhas.
Correct, yeah.
When they make that statement, I feel at least if they are making that statement, they should conviction should be there that devotional service is topmost. When some devotees, when they do read a lot and make such statements, then it is little confusing. And I think before starting Bhagavatam, they should have the conviction of that devotional service should be top. But
no
Prabhupada,
need,
as you said, has not
yeah,
mentioned anything like that, right?
Prabhupada didn't mention it, like, no, even, like, no, say, Prabhupada used to, or Prabhupada, I heard in some this one, that when one is given the access to the lift, he doesn't have to go through the staircases and all. So he can just get into the lift and go. Why he doesn't have to see that, okay, what it takes to go by the staircase, then let me try the lift and all, one thing. And second thing, also that, like, as we discussed in this only, that Sushusha Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katarachi, like, now, when one serves the great souls, then he develops the attraction towards hearing Vasudeva Katha. And even in the Narada Muni's life also, we don't get to hear that, like, no, all he did was serve the great souls and then heard from them what they were discussing about the Supreme Lord. And that was sufficient for him to give the conviction that when his mother left, he went to the north just remembering the Lord, trying to meditate on the Lord. He didn't go into the much deeper analysis of this one. And second thing, if one has that ability to, like, no, to take those things from those 6 systems of knowledge, then one will be able to. Otherwise, this karma mimamsa and all is there, no, Jaimini, what he has given and all, one may get lost in that only, Nyaya and all, in trying to understand, and he may not come to the conclusion only. That's why even in Prabhupada's purports, if you see, Prabhupada doesn't, even in the Bhagavad Gita also, many purports, 8th chapter and all, although Krishna is speaking some things, but Prabhupada doesn't go more into analyzing that, giving that. Prabhupada comes to the conclusion, chant Hare Krishna Bhakti, chant Hare Krishna Bhakti. Because otherwise we may get lost in understanding those, like, what is Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga and all those things, and we may get lost there.
Because it's sometimes knowledge looks so overwhelming that it makes devotional service look in front of it small, because it is our perception of the reader, because it is very vast and it's very overwhelming. Yes, but conclusively we should take to what Prabhupada mentions.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think we will take one last question from Sri Balaji Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Radha Bhavini.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the nice class. But one thing is obvious that I'm not taking proper shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Shoka, Moha and Bhaya, all 3 have not given way. It's just following the same way. So that is one obvious thing, that not right shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam is not being taken. Another one thing you were telling, I like the point that our desire to go back to Goloka. You were telling that way, Prabhupada says that how strong is a desire to go back to Goloka. Yeah. So what I was contemplating, in fact, we asked each other at that time, are we really having the desire to go back to Goloka? Do we ever desire? So that was one thing. Another thing I was contemplating is, in this material pursuits and also engaging in our limited services, it just goes on as it is. And I don't know whether ever we keep that, and intensity of desire. Prabhu is correcting me. So that thought never comes that much, Prabhuji. So is that important that we should keep that desire that we want to go to Goloka? Because many acharyas, we pray that we hear the prayer that whatever it is, let us be always engaged in our devotional service. That's the main prayer that comes out mostly. But can you please clarify on this point, Prabhuji?
Yes. No, thank you. Whatever I've understood, I'll try to share. I'm also in the same boat. It's not that I'm speaking, I have so much of taste or something. I also have the Shoka, Moha, Bhaya and all. Like all the abhadras are there in the heart. The knot is very strong in the heart also. So only thing is that while sailing in the boat, each helps the other person. So that's what, like, now the Srimad Bhagavatam, the way Prabhupada has made, when we keep hearing from the devotees, although it may not be that the devotee may not be completely pure, but at least when they repeat the words of the acharyas, then those words like may inspire any other person. That is one thing. And second thing, we may not have that intense desire, or we may have, but at times because of so many other engagements and all, it may become sometimes like, we may not see it as the central focus. But at least if we are sincere, like, as Lord Ramachandra, when Vibhishana comes to the surrender, there he says that Sakradeva Papannoyam Tavasmiti Achate Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai Dadam Yetad Vratamama. He says that Sakradeva Prapannoyam, if only once, Sakrad means only once, if somebody says that Tava Asmi Itichi Achate, I am yours, my dear Lord Ram, if they say that and if they surrender, Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai, I give the Abhaya for Sarvada, for all time to come. This is my word. And Lord Ram is Maryada Purushottam, and he'll not go away with his words. So that way, even if in the core of the heart, at once, if you have prayed, my dear Lord, please, I want to come back to you. Lord is there seated in the heart, and he has listened it, and he will be eager to help us. And again, the bhakti is a moment. It is not one-time activity. It is continuous. So once I had prayed, my dear Lord, I want to come back to you. And then again, if you have become that little negligent or something, then Krishna will, ye tamba prapadyante. Oh, you don't want? I'll be waiting for you. So that way. So time and again, when we hear these things, then when we remind ourselves and then try to be like, eager, then the Krishna is there understanding the sincerity. In the 10:10 also, Bhagavad Gita 10:10 also, really very wonderful purport. If you read that, it also gives kind of quite this one, that if a devotee comes to the bhakti, he has a spiritual master, but he doesn't know how to take advantage of that. Then Lord within the heart, if he is a sincere, Lord will help out. That purport is really very inspiring purport. So that sincerity is the main thing which matters. One thing. And second thing also, that time and again when we remind ourselves, then the Lord will also help us. And the third thing you are mentioning, that the prayer that we are like, Lord, wherever you want to put us. So I heard from senior devotee that yes, that's a wonderful prayer, but first thing is that we should be praying that, my dear Lord, I want to come back to you as a neophyte. Very advanced stage, they may say that, my dear Lord, you put me either Diviva, Bhuviva, Mamastu Asum, Narekive, Narekantaka Prakama. Like Kulashekar Alva says, my dear Lord, either you put me in the heaven, hell, or in this world, I don't mind. All I want is Charanote Maranepi Chintayami, that while leaving this body, I want to remember your lotus feet. That is the aspiration a pure devotee has. So, but we may not have that, but at least because we may, in that, like, let me be here, we may get attracted to something else, and all those things. So initially our desire should be, let me go back to the spiritual world. And after that, if Lord wants to send us back, like no, then it is His wish. But at least in our neophyte stage, that's what I've heard, that we should have the desire to go back. And then at a purified stage, yes, my dear Lord, Ashtishyava Padaratam. Like that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also prays that in the Nadanam Najanam, after that Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishami Bhavam Budho Krupaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya. Please keep me as a dust at your lotus feet. That means I want to come back to you. I want to be at your lotus feet. That is his prayer. And then at a more purified stage, Ashtishyava Padratam, that whether you embrace me or you reject me, I am okay to whatever you want to do. This is my understanding.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for clarifying. Thank you for the nice class, inspiring class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, and thank you, devotees,
Discussion
for
next week also,
extended hearing.
Prabhu.
Yes,
I didn't get a chance to talk to you.
Yes, Mataji.
I'll request Prabhuji.
Yes.
Mataji is requesting to have this continued session on the same topic next week as well, next Wednesday as well.
I don't know, whatever little bit I knew, I just shared. I'll see to yes, whatever I can try to.
I'll connect with Prabhuji, Mataji. I'll connect with Swayam Prakash Prabhu and check his schedule. We all would like to request him to continue again next Wednesday also, same topic.
Yeah, yeah. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I
Thank you, devotees.
really late.
Yeah, no problem, Prabhuji. We'll end today's session with Vaishnava Pranam.
Vanchakalpatarubhishya Kripasinubhyo च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। वैष्णव ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. I'll end the Zoom session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.